Some of you are frustrated not because God said no, but because God hasn't said now. And we struggle with that space in between. The space between the promise and the performance. The space between the prayer and the answer. The space between where you are and where you believe you're supposed to be. But here's what you've got to understand. Delay is not denial when God is in control of the clock. We live by calendars, deadlines, and notifications. God moves by purpose, preparation, and positioning. You're watching the clock on the wall. God is watching the condition of your heart. You think you're waiting on God, but sometimes God is waiting on you. There are blessings you're asking for that your current character can't carry. There are doors you want opened that your present level of maturity would mishandle. So God, in His mercy, lets time do what trouble cannot, develop you. Seeds don't break the soil the day they're planted. A baby isn't born the moment it's conceived. There is a divine process hidden in the dark. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. God does His deepest work underground. Some of you are upset because life didn't move when you wanted it to. That job didn't come through. That relationship didn't work out. That opportunity closed. But what if that mischance was actually divine protection? What if God saw what you couldn't see? Timing isn't just about arrival. It's also about avoidance. When God delays, He's either preparing the blessing for you or preparing you for the blessing. If God gave it too soon, you'd praise the gift and forget the giver. If He gave it too late, you'd think you did it on your own. So He steps in at the exact moment where only He gets the credit. Have you ever noticed how often things make sense later? At the time, it felt like rejection. Later, you call it redirection. At the time, it felt like loss. Later, you see it was leverage. God's clock doesn't just tell time, it tells purpose. But here's the hard part. Faith grows in waiting rooms. Anybody can shout when the prayer is answered. Real faith whispers, I still trust you when nothing is changing. Waiting seasons reveal who you really believe is in charge. If you rush ahead of God, you'll have to sustain what only God could have supplied. But when you move with God's timing, He takes responsibility for what He ordains. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not overlooked. You are on schedule in a system that runs on sovereignty, not seconds. God is never early. He's never late. He's always strategic. The same God who set the sun, moon, and stars in motion, who never lets the ocean cross its boundary, is the same God managing the details of your life. If creation runs on His timing, why wouldn't your calling? So instead of asking, when will it happen? Maybe the better question is, who am I becoming while I wait? Because when God's clock strikes your moment, doors will open you couldn't force, favor will come you couldn't earn, and clarity will arrive you couldn't manufacture. And when it happens, you'll look back at every delay, every tear, every closed door and say, if it had happened sooner, I wouldn't have been ready. If it had happened later, I would have missed it. But God's clock never misses. One of the greatest struggles people of faith face is learning how to interpret silence. When heaven seems quiet, when prayers feel like they hit the ceiling and fall back down, the natural assumption is that something is wrong. We think no movement means no answer. We think slow means stop. But in the divine economy, a delay is not a denial. It is often a sign that something deeper is happening beyond what human eyes can measure. We are creatures of immediacy. We heat food in minutes, send messages in seconds, and expect results on demand. That mindset quietly slips into our spiritual lives. We pray and then check the delivery status as if God operates like a tracking number. When the answer doesn't arrive on our timeline, frustration sets in. Doubt creeps in. We begin to question whether we heard God correctly, whether we prayed the right way, or whether we're even worthy of the thing we asked for. But the issue is not always faith that is too small. Sometimes it is perspective that is too narrow. A farmer never stands over planted seeds screaming at the soil, hurry up! He understands that growth has stages. First the seed breaks, then the roots stretch, then the sprout rises, and only later does fruit appear. None of that is visible at first, but all of it is necessary. If you dig up the ground every day to check progress, you don't speed up growth, you destroy it. In the same way, God's delays are not empty spaces, they are development zones. Sometimes what feels like divine inactivity is actually divine construction. God may be arranging people you haven't met yet, shifting circumstances you can't see, or removing obstacles you didn't know were there. You are judging by what is happening to you while God is working through things around you. Just because the stage looks still doesn't mean the backstage isn't full of movement. There is also the matter of readiness. We often focus on receiving while God focuses on sustaining. A blessing received too early can become a burden instead of a breakthrough. Promotion without preparation produces pressure instead of peace. Influence without integrity leads to collapse. So love sometimes looks like a wait. Mercy sometimes looks like a not yet. God is more committed to your long-term stability than your short-term satisfaction. Think about how many things in life you're grateful didn't happen when you first wanted them. Relationships you once prayed would work out that later proved to be wrong for you. Opportunities that close only for better ones to appear. At the time, it felt like loss. In hindsight, it was protection. If every request were granted on demand, we would walk into situations our future selves would beg to escape. Delay also does something inside you that instant. Answers never could. It deepens trust. When you don't have visible evidence, you learn to lean on character instead of circumstances. You begin to trust who God is, not just what He does. Anyone can believe when results are obvious. Real spiritual strength is built when you continue showing up in faithfulness while the outcome is still unseen. Waiting seasons stretch patience, reshape motives, and clarify desires. Sometimes you discover that what you thought you needed was actually a substitute for something deeper God wanted to give. The waiting refines the request. It purifies the heart. It shifts your focus from give me this to grow me through this. A denial closes a door permanently. A delay keeps the door on its hinges, just not open yet. One ends the possibility, the other prepares the moment. And when the time does come, you often realize the waiting was part of the gift. You walk into the blessing stronger, wiser, humbler, and more aware of the one who made it possible. So the silence is not proof of absence. The pause is not proof of rejection. It may simply mean that heaven is working on a timetable that includes your growth, your protection, and a purpose larger than your immediate comfort. Most people pray for change in their circumstances, while heaven often starts by working on their character. We want God to fix what's around us, the job, the finances, the relationships, the opportunities, but God frequently chooses to transform what's within us first. Because if your situation changes, but you don't, you'll eventually recreate the same problems in a different setting. Circumstances can be handed to you in a moment. Character is built over time. What God gives quickly, life can take quickly if the internal structure isn't strong enough to hold it. It's like constructing a building. Everyone admires the height, but engineers obsess over the foundation. The deeper the calling, the longer the preparation. The greater the assignment, the more intense the internal work. We tend to measure progress by visible shifts. A new door opens, a prayer is answered, a breakthrough arrives. Now we say God is moving. But heaven's measurement system is different. Growth in patience, humility, integrity, self-control, forgiveness, and endurance may not trend on social media, but in the spiritual realm, that is major advancement. You may look the same on the outside while becoming an entirely different person on the inside. God understands something we often ignore. Blessings amplify who you already are. If you are insecure, success can make you arrogant or anxious. If you lack discipline, increase can turn into excess. If your identity is shaky, influence can become addiction. So before God expands your platform, He stabilizes your personhood. Before He increases your reach, He strengthens your roots. Pressure plays a key role in this process. We often rebuke the very situations God is using as training grounds. Difficult coworkers may be teaching patience. Delays may be producing endurance. Disappointments may be building emotional resilience. When life squeezes you, what comes out reveals what's in you. And God is more concerned with what flows from your heart than what falls into your hands. There's also the matter of motives. Sometimes we ask for things for reasons we don't fully understand ourselves. We may call it purpose, but deep down it's comparison. We may call it vision, but it's driven by validation. Character development exposes and purifies those motives. Over time, desires get refined. You begin to want what aligns with purpose rather than what feeds ego. That shift protects you from chasing things that look good but lead nowhere meaningful. Internal transformation also shapes how you handle people. Influence without compassion becomes control. Authority without humility becomes oppression. Success without empathy becomes isolation. God will often allow you to experience weakness, failure, or need so you develop gentleness toward others. When you've been carried, you learn how to carry. Another part of character work is learning obedience in small things. We dream of big assignments, but faithfulness in unseen, uncelebrated tasks is what proves readiness. Showing up when no one applauds. Doing right when it costs. Staying consistent when results are slow. These quiet choices form the backbone of integrity. Public impact rests on private discipline. Character also determines sustainability. Anyone can have a moment. Not everyone can handle a lifetime. Talent may open a door, but character decides how long you stay in the room. Without internal strength, external success becomes fragile. One test, one temptation, one season of pressure can undo years of progress if the inner life hasn't been fortified. The process can feel slow and even unfair. You may watch others advance while you feel stuck in refinement. But comparison is misleading because you see platforms, not preparation, results, not roots. God customizes development according to calling. What he's building in you may require deeper excavation. In the end, changed circumstances can make life easier, but changed character makes life meaningful. One adjusts your environment, the other transforms your impact. And when the inner life aligns with purpose, the outer blessings no longer control you. You steward them with wisdom, stability, and grace. One of the hardest truths to accept is that what feels like a setback may actually be a shield. We naturally interpret closed doors as rejection, missed opportunities as failure, and sudden changes as loss. But there is another possibility we rarely consider in the moment: protection. Divine timing is not only about bringing the right things into your life, it's also about keeping the wrong things out. You only see the surface of a situation. God sees the full structure. You see the opportunity. He sees the hidden weight attached to it. You see the person. He sees the patterns, the history, the future impact. You see the excitement of arrival. He sees the consequences of involvement. So when something you desperately wanted slips through your fingers, it doesn't always mean you were denied a blessing. Sometimes you were spared a burden. Think about how many decisions look good in the short term but carry long-term cost. A job with impressive pay but a toxic environment. A relationship filled with chemistry but lacking character. An opportunity that boosts visibility but compromises values. Timing becomes protection because God understands not just where you are, but where that path would eventually lead. He's not just managing moments, he's guarding destiny. The challenge is that protection rarely feels pleasant. It often feels like disappointment. When a door closes, you don't immediately celebrate safety. You grieve what you thought you were losing. But perspective changes with distance. Months or years later, you look back and say, if that had worked out, I would have been stuck, drained, distracted, damaged. What once looked like deprivation reveals itself as deliverance. There are dangers you never knew you avoided. Conversations that didn't happen, deals that fell apart, plans that got interrupted, delays that frustrated you at the time, may have kept you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. We measure God's faithfulness by what he gives. But sometimes his faithfulness is seen in what he withholds. Protection also applies to your own readiness. There are seasons when success could harm you more than failure. Recognition could inflate ego. Pressure could crush peace. Responsibility could overwhelm stability. So timing steps in like a guardrail. You think you're ready because desire is strong, but readiness is more than passion. It's capacity, maturity, and resilience. Have you ever prayed for something and later on felt relieved you didn't receive it? That relief is hindsight revealing protection. At the time, emotions were loud. Logic was quiet. God's perspective stretches beyond your current feelings. He sees how one choice connects to a chain of outcomes. What seems small now could shape years ahead. Even detours can be protective. A delayed plan may reroute you through experiences that strengthen you for what's coming. A setback may introduce you to people you would never have met on the original path. A no may push you toward a yes you didn't know existed. What looks like being blocked can actually be being redirected away from harm and toward alignment. Protection through timing also builds trust. When you start to recognize that not every closed door is an enemy, fear begins to loosen its grip. You don't panic as quickly when plans change. You begin to believe that unseen care is at work. Instead of assuming life is falling apart, you consider that it may be falling into place in ways you cannot yet trace. This doesn't erase the pain of disappointment, but it reframes it. Loss doesn't always mean something was taken from you. Sometimes it means something dangerous was kept from attaching to you. The delay, the interruption, the unexpected shift may be heaven's quiet way of saying, not this. I have something safer, stronger, and more fitting ahead. In that light, timing becomes more than a schedule. It becomes a safeguard. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Not every door meant to be opened. Not every path meant to be walked. And when you begin to see that, even the no and not yet start to carry a hidden mercy within them. Waiting has a way of revealing what we truly believe. It's easy to speak about trust when everything is moving, doors are opening, and prayers seem to be answered on cue. But when progress slows, when silence stretches, and when visible evidence disappears, faith is no longer a slogan. It becomes a choice. The waiting season strips away emotional excitement and leaves you with the core question. Do you trust the one who made the promise even when the process feels unclear? Movement gives the illusion of control. When things are happening, you feel involved, productive, engaged. Waiting, on the other hand, confronts your limits. You can't force growth, rush healing, or manufacture timing. You are placed in a position where action is replaced by surrender, and surrender is uncomfortable because it shifts the weight from your ability to God's reliability. In these seasons, emotions often get louder than conviction. Doubt whispers that nothing is changing. Fear suggests you've been forgotten. Comparison points out how others seem to be moving ahead while you stand still. The mind begins creating stories to fill the silence. But faith is the discipline of refusing to let temporary feelings override lasting truth. Waiting also exposes where you've placed your security. If your peace depends on quick results, then delay will shake you. If your identity depends on visible progress, stillness will unsettle you. But when trust is rooted in who God is rather than what he is currently doing, stability grows. You begin to understand that divine faithfulness is not measured by speed, but by consistency of character. There's a deep internal work that happens when you continue showing up without visible reward, praying when answers are not obvious, staying faithful when results are not immediate, choosing obedience when outcomes are uncertain. These quiet acts build spiritual endurance. They stretch your capacity to remain steady in uncertain conditions. Like muscles formed through resistance, faith becomes stronger when tested. Waiting seasons also refine motives. When the timeline stretches, superficial desires often fade and deeper convictions surface. You begin to ask yourself why you wanted certain things in the first place. Was it purpose or pressure? Calling or comparison? The longer you sit in the process, the clearer your heart becomes. What remains after impatience burns off is usually what truly matters. Another aspect of waiting is learning to live fully in the present. Instead of postponing joy until the future, it's tempting to think life will begin once the breakthrough comes. But faith teaches you to find meaning in the middle. Growth doesn't only happen at arrival points, it happens along the road. Gratitude in small moments, lessons in ordinary days, peace in simple routines. These become anchors that keep you from drifting into frustration. Waiting can also deepen relationship. When you're not distracted by constant change, you become more aware of God's presence rather than just his provision. Conversations shift from requests to communion. You begin to value connection over outcomes. That intimacy forms a foundation that lasts beyond any single blessing. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you've walked through seasons where nothing seemed to move and yet you were sustained. You carry a different calm. You've seen that delay didn't destroy you. You've learned that unanswered questions didn't mean absence. That history builds resilience for future uncertainties. Faith proven in waiting is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, persistent, and often unseen by others. But it shapes the kind of person who can handle fulfillment without losing humility, success without losing balance, and blessing without losing perspective. Trust formed in stillness becomes strength that movement alone could never create. When the moment finally comes, it often arrives with a sense of precision on that feels almost undeniable. Doors open in ways you couldn't have engineered. Connections form that you didn't arrange. Opportunities align with timing, readiness, and needs so seamlessly that you realize something bigger than chance is at work. Divine movement is not random, it is deliberate, layered, and complete. What God initiates carries a depth and wholeness that human effort alone cannot replicate. We often try to force outcomes through sheer determination. We push, network, plan, and strive, believing that enough effort will guarantee success. Effort matters, but there is a difference between striving and alignment. Striving is fueled by pressure and fear of missing out. Alignment flows from trust that the right doors will open at the right time. When you move ahead of timing, you carry the weight of making everything work. When timing leads, grace carries what effort cannot. Strategic timing means that multiple elements come together at once. It's not just about you being ready, it's about the environment being ready too. The right people are in place. The necessary resources are available. Circumstances have shifted to support what is unfolding. What once felt impossible begins to move with surprising ease. This doesn't mean there is no work involved, but there is a sense of cooperation rather than constant resistance. Another mark of strategic movement is clarity. When things are forced, confusion often follows. You second-guess decisions, wrestle with constant uncertainty, and feel drained trying to hold everything together. But when timing is right, there is a steady inner peace even in the presence of responsibility. You may not have every detail, but you carry confidence about the direction. That assurance doesn't come from perfect conditions, it comes from alignment with purpose. Strategic outcomes also bring growth, not just gain. What God does is not only designed to improve your situation, but to deepen your life. You don't just receive something, you become someone. The experience stretches wisdom, compassion, discipline, and gratitude. Success that comes through divine timing tends to humble rather than inflate, because you recognize how many factors were beyond your control. There is also protection built into strategic timing. Because the process prepared you, you are less likely to mishandle what you receive. Character has been shaped, perspective broadened, and motives refined. The blessing fits the person you've become. It doesn't overwhelm or distort you because the internal capacity now matches the external opportunity. Strategic movement also carries impact beyond you. When timing is right, the outcome often blesses others in ways you couldn't have planned. Your growth positions you to help, encourage, and influence with authenticity. The journey you walk becomes a source of empathy and insight. What you gained is not just for personal comfort, but for meaningful contribution. There's a difference between something starting fast and something starting right. Fast beginnings can fade just as quickly, but what unfolds in proper timing tends to have endurance. It is built on layers of preparation, unseen adjustments, and quiet formation. Because the foundation is strong, the structure lasts. You may look back and realize that if things had happened earlier, you would have lacked the strength, wisdom, or support needed. If they had happened later, the opportunity might have passed. That realization builds trust for the future. You see that timing was not accidental, but intentional. When strategic movement happens, gratitude replaces striving. You still work, plan, and act, but not from panic. You operate from partnership rather than pressure. You understand that what is meant for you does not require manipulation, only cooperation. And that confidence allows you to walk forward with steadiness, knowing that what began with purpose will continue with provision, guidance, and completion beyond what human timing alone could achieve. There is a subtle but powerful shift that happens when you stop measuring your life by speed and start measuring it by direction. Many people live in quiet anxiety because they feel behind. Behind in career, behind in relationships, behind in achievements, behind in milestones they assumed would be met by now. That feeling creates pressure to rush decisions, force doors, and compare journeys. But the truth is, being early in the wrong season is just as harmful as being late in the right one. Timing is not about pace alone, it is about placement. Every life moves according to a design that cannot be fully understood from a single moment. You see snapshots, God sees the storyline. You focus on chapters, He knows the ending from the beginning. What feels like delay may actually be synchronization, aligning your life with people, places, and purposes that are also in process. If one piece moves too soon, the connection doesn't happen correctly. So timing often involves coordination far beyond what you can observe. Think about how orchestras will arcade. Each instrument has moments to be silent and moments to be loud. If the violin insists on playing during the flute solo, the result is noise, not harmony. Silence doesn't mean the musician is unimportant. It means the timing of their contribution hasn't arrived yet. In the same way, a quieter season in your life doesn't mean you're insignificant. It may mean your part is being prepared for the right movement. Feeling behind often comes from comparison, but comparison ignores context. You may see someone else's success without seeing their sacrifices, struggles, or calling. Not every path requires the same preparation. A structure built to hold more weight requires deeper foundations. What looks like slowness may actually be reinforcement. Rushing that process would create instability later. There is also growth that can only happen in seasons that don't look impressive. Character is often formed in obscurity. Discipline develops when no one is watching. Faith deepens when applause is absent. These qualities rarely grow in fast, flashy moments. They are shaped in ordinary days, repeated effort, and quiet consistency. Those hidden developments become the support system for visible impact later. Another reason timing matters is emotional and spiritual readiness. You can have the talent for something without yet having the maturity to handle its pressures. Influence can expose insecurities. Responsibility can magnify weaknesses. Waiting allows healing to take place, perspective to mature, and identity to stabilize. That way, when opportunity comes, it doesn't define you. You define how it is used. There are also relationships that must align. Some doors open only when the right people are in position. Mentors, partners, supporters, and even those you are meant to help may still be on their own journey of preparation. Timing weaves lives together in ways no individual could plan. What feels like isolation may actually be orchestration. Learning to trust placement over pace brings peace. Instead of asking, why isn't this happening yet? You begin to ask, what is this season shaping in me? That question turns frustration into curiosity. You start noticing growth you previously overlooked, patience that is stronger than before, wisdom that came through experience, resilience formed through setbacks. These are not signs of being behind, they are signs of being built. When you embrace the idea that your life is positioned, not delayed, pressure eases. You no longer chase every opportunity out of fear. You become more discerning, recognizing that not every open door is yours to walk through. Confidence grows that what is meant for you will arrive in its proper time, without needing to compromise your values or exhaust your soul trying to secure it. Eventually, moments come when movement accelerates. Doors open, progress happens, and things fall into place with a sense of rightness. Those seasons often feel smoother because earlier times of stillness prepared you. You're not scrambling to catch up. You are stepping into something that fits who you have become. Trusting placement means believing that your current season, even if quiet or slow, is not wasted. It is part of a larger design where every pause, every preparation, and every unseen adjustment contributes to a future that unfolds with meaning rather than mere momentum. 1. Of the most overlooked truths about life is that timing is not just about arrival, it is about impact. People often measure success by speed, how quickly something comes to pass, how fast recognition arrives, or how soon a goal is achieved. But divine timing operates on a completely different metric. God's timing ensures that when a blessing or breakthrough arrives, it comes in a way that maximizes not only its benefit to you, but its influence on those around you. It's not enough for something to happen. It must happen at the right moment to achieve the full purpose. The challenge is that human perception is limited. We see only fragments, snapshots of the story. We evaluate progress based on visible results rather than unseen preparation. What looks like delay may actually be positioning. Doors that remain closed are not barriers, they are guides, directing you toward the pathways that will align with your calling. When we fail to recognize this, we become impatient, frustrated, or even fearful, forgetting that every season of waiting has a reason beyond our immediate understanding. Timing works in layers. It coordinates readiness, opportunity, and environment. You may be ready internally, but the surrounding circumstances may need adjustment. People may not yet be in place, resources may need to be gathered, or other variables may require alignment. When God orchestrates movement, all these elements converge with precision. That is why breakthroughs often feel effortless when they finally arrive. The weight of previous struggles, the lessons learned, and the growth developed during waiting all converge to prepare the moment for maximum effect. There's also the element, T of protection embedded in timing. A blessing received too early, without preparation, can become a burden. Without maturity, influence can lead to arrogance. Without stability, resources can be wasted. Without wisdom, opportunities can be mishandled. Timing ensures that what is meant for you is delivered when you are equipped to steward it well. God's delays are often preventative. They prevent misalignment, harm, and wasted potential. What feels like a setback may actually be a safeguard. Trusting in strategic timing also strengthens faith. Patience is not passive, it is active trust. When you continue to live faithfully, pursue growth, and maintain integrity despite waiting, you develop resilience and confidence. That faith becomes a foundation upon which future blessings can rest securely. If everything came immediately, you would never develop the endurance, discernment, and perspective necessary to sustain success or handle influence with wisdom. The waiting seasons also provide clarity. In the absence of immediate fulfillment, motives, desires, and priorities are exposed. You learn to differentiate between what you truly need and what you merely want. You begin to understand that God's purpose is bigger than personal satisfaction. Timing aligns not just the event, but the heart, ensuring that when the moment arrives, it resonates with intention and produces lasting fruit. The person and the provision are both refined and synchronized for the impact God intends. Another critical aspect of timing is relational alignment. God often places people in our paths at the right moment. Partners, mentors, and supporters are coordinated to be present when influence, resources, or guidance are needed. Similarly, some encounters are delayed or removed to prevent distraction or harm. Timing ensures that relationships contribute positively to growth and purpose, rather than complicating or derailing the process. The orchestration is comprehensive, affecting multiple lives simultaneously. Understanding that timing is strategic changes how you respond to delays. Instead of reacting with anxiety or frustration, you begin to approach each season with intentionality and awareness. You recognize the value in preparation, reflection, and personal growth. You see the unseen work as part of a larger plan, where every lesson, struggle, and challenge is shaping you for the impact to come. Even when progress seems invisible, you realize that the foundation is being laid for something far greater than what you initially imagined. Finally, trusting in divine timing cultivates gratitude and humility. When the breakthrough arrives, it comes with perspective, understanding, and appreciation. You recognize the lessons learned in the waiting, the growth achieved through struggle, and the protection embedded in the delay. Gratitude flows naturally because the outcome is not only beneficial but purposeful. Timing ensures that the moment carries significance beyond immediate gain. It transforms your life, your character, and your influence in ways that would not have been possible if it had come sooner or later. In essence, timing is a tool for impact. It shapes how T comes, strengthens character, protects from harm, aligns relationships, and maximizes influence. Learning to trust it transforms waiting from frustration into preparation, uncertainty into faith, and delays into deliberate orchestration of a purpose far greater than the moment itself. Every pause, setback, or delay is intentional, leading toward a moment of profound alignment where preparation, opportunity, and blessing converge perfectly.